here. I am really honored to be able to introduce our inaugural Carl King Hoagland Jr. speaker. So please join me in welcoming Paula Boggs. Paula's going to deliver some remarks, and then she will be followed on the stage by our own provost, Beverly Wendland, for a fireside chat. Paula Boggs is the founder of Boggs Media, LLC, a business that manages her music, speaking, and other creative business activities. She is a TEDx speaker, a writer, a lawyer, an Army veteran, and a musician. You don't hear all those things together very often, do you? Boggs served as Executive Vice President, General Counsel, and Secretary at Starbucks Corporation from 2002 to 2012. In 2009, NASDAQ named her its top General Counsel. Her prior professional experience includes serving as Vice President Legal at Dell Computer Corporation and as a partner at the law firm of Preston, Gates & Ellis LLP. She also had a 14-year career in public service, including as an assistant U.S. attorney and in various capacities as an attorney for the U.S. Army, the Department of Defense, and the White House Office of Legal Counsel. She served 8 years as a regular officer in the United States Army and earned Army Airborne Wings and a congressional appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy, among America's first women to do so. Paula Boggs is a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley School of Law, earned a bachelor's degree in international studies from Johns Hopkins University. She was also an adjunct professor at the University of Washington School of Law. Since leaving Starbucks, Paula Boggs gives speeches across the United States and beyond, writes essays, writes music, co-produces albums for and tours extensively with Paula Boggs Band. In 2013, President Obama appointed her to the President's Committee on the Arts and the Humanities. In 2018, she received the Seattle Mayor's Arts Award, and in 2021, Southwestern University conferred an honorary Doctor of Laws. Paula owns several U.S. copyrights and is a voting member and board governor of the Recording Academy Pacific Northwest chapter. To help future scholars, Paula Boggs is the donor and creator of the Boggs Fellowship. This fellowship, awarded to HBCU graduates or underrepresented persons of color who pursue graduate studies in the physical, biological, or engineering sciences at Johns Hopkins University. Paula, we would love to have you join the stage and hear your remarks.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. It's so beautiful here in St. Louis. I'm coming from Seattle, and right now we are victimed by fires to the north of us, and so it's very smoky in Seattle right now. And so to be in a place with blue skies and clean air is quite a gift. So thank you for that. This is also my very first time on your campus, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you this afternoon. You know, we don't use the word love very often in these kinds of settings, but I'm here to tell you that I love your provost, Bev Wendland. I do, and like many, I cried ugly when Bev left Johns Hopkins University for Washington University. You see, as we celebrate women and leadership, particularly as it relates to academia, you really can't have that conversation without Bev Wendland. At Hopkins, Bev blazed trails as a researcher, department chair, and dean during an era continuing to this very day when being a woman leader puts you in very rare air. I'm grateful for the friendship we forged, the work we accomplished in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the increase in student well-being under Bev's leadership at Hopkins. It was my great fortune as an alumni trustee and student advocate to have a front row seat to Bev's magic. In my last trustee job, I served as chair of the board's Student Life Committee, overseeing all non-academic aspects of undergraduate and student life across all of Hopkins' many divisions. Bev and I worked on issues as diverse as admissions and public safety. She always made time, always cared, was courageous, delivered. And I'm grateful and thrilled I get to say that publicly to her new academic family. And by the way, major props to Chancellor Martin. I understand women comprise 89% of Washington University's leadership cabinet. That is, in my view, a stunning achievement for a top-tier research institution. So give yourselves a hand. Now, recognizing I believe I am the first Carl King Hoagland keynote speaker for the She Leads Symposium, I did a little research on Mr. Hoagland and was delighted to learn, like me, he is a military veteran and former corporate general counsel. And so I don't know if he's in the room, but thank you, sir, for your service and for supporting such a worthy cause. And thinking about what I might talk about this afternoon, I kept coming back to Title IX, its impact on my life, the opportunities it created for so many women, and what its 50th anniversary means as we forge ahead, hopefully, towards an America and beyond where women finally achieve equality. Title IX is the most commonly used name for the US civil rights law enacted in 1972, so 50 years ago, that prohibits sex-based discrimination in schools or other educational programs receiving funding from the federal government. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am 100% a Title IX baby. I was 13 years old when President Richard Nixon signed it on June 23rd of 1972. And my life as a high schooler, college student, and military officer were directly and profoundly shaped by its 37 words. Quote, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from, participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." You see, before Title IX, women and girls were virtually excluded from athletic opportunities in schools. 50 years ago, the gender gap in sports ran broad and deep. According to the Women's Sports Foundation, between 1971 and 72, more than 3.6 million boys participated in a high school sport, compared to less than 300,000 girls. In other words, the boys' high school sports participation rate was more than 10 times that of high school girls. 2 months after President Nixon signed with 4 children in tow, she did so to teach the children of US military personnel in Germany. As an 8th grade runner at Karlsruhe American High School, I had no idea I was doing something revolutionary. I had no idea I was a pioneer. As a high school junior applying for an Army ROTC scholarship into the U.S. Naval Academy, I had little appreciation that women had only become eligible for ROTC, the main source of military officers, 4 years prior. I knew I would be in the second class of women at Annapolis and felt that weight, but I had no appreciation for what it meant to attend a university like Johns Hopkins, all male, until 1971. When I arrived at Hopkins in the fall of 1977, it was still very much a man's world. In contrast, by 1977, women had been at WashU for nearly a century. As an undergraduate, I had no women professors. Some buildings had no women's restrooms, and there was no women's track team. Title IX was viewed with, at best, a wink and a nod. Against this backdrop, Wendy Galfand and I met our freshman year. She was a fencer and runner. There was a women's fencing team, but Wendy and I wanted to run for a team that didn't exist and for which there was huge institutional resistance. Still in our teens, we became unlikely civil rights advocates, wielding different assets. Wendy had a fencing coach, willing to coach women runners. I gained the crucial support of Army ROTC at Hopkins. We strategized, fought for, and first gained club status. Then, after winning the Middle Atlantic Conference Championship, we became a cross-country team in 1979, and a women's track team followed in 1980. Our courage and grit, though, meant little without men allies every step of the way. Our male coach wasn't getting paid to work with us, but he did it anyway. The Army ROTC faculty helping us was all male. Even our uniforms and the vans we drove to meets were paid for by a wealthy man, not an alum, inspired by our doggedness as he watched us practice in ragtag uniforms on Hopkins campus track. For every man demanding we take a jock strap before entering the athletic center, and yes, that happened, there was another doing the right thing. In that case, the president of Johns Hopkins, Steve Muller, who put an end to that practice once he learned about it. Those experiences at Hopkins and other places in my early adulthood prepared me well for leadership opportunities presented on life's highway. I've lost count of the times I was the first or only. I was the only professional Black female I remember in Reagan's White House. For most of my time as a federal prosecutor, I was the only Black female across 10 states. I was my Seattle law firm's first Black female partner, Dell Computer's first Black female and first openly gay executive, and Starbucks' first Black executive vice president. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, it's lonely being the only. I've always felt and feel the stress and weight. I have battled imposter syndrome. Should I even be here? Did they make a mistake? Failure is not just personal when you're the first or only. You know or fear your failure will jinx the path of those who follow. You walk on eggshells, fearing one misstep leads to the abyss. It's not intuitive to know failure is human. And trust me, I have failed. I've written 2/3 of a memoir I hope to finish in the coming months. It literally begins like this. I'm a loser. No, I'm a 2-time loser. Well, before long, I'd failed the lawyer bar exam a 3rd time and really thought I'd never be a lawyer. It was an incredibly dark period. I was embarrassed, self-doubting, and scared. I was the first Black female ever selected for the Army General Counsel's honors program, and I had a 4-year military commitment hanging over my head. I was working at the Pentagon, but my situation meant I could be shipped off anywhere. Time was not my friend. However, lucky me, I had failed before. I'd been embarrassed on tracks, but still ran the next race. That D in freshman economics turned into an A the 2nd time around. In the case of me and the bar, failure forced me to be creative. I still showed up every day despite the mushroom cloud, trying to do my best work. People noticed, including Ami Hober, Deputy Undersecretary of the Army and one of very few women in Reagan's White House and Pentagon. She was responsible for a lot of treaty work. And I had an undergraduate degree in international studies. She didn't have anyone like me on her staff, so maybe I could thread that needle. Timing is everything. One evening, working late, I noticed Hober entering the ladies' room. Opportunity. When Hober emerged from her stall, it was showtime. Words cascaded like waterfalls, and I had no idea whether any of them were sticking, but my 26-year-old life hinged on selling the idea to work for Hober. Just like in those earlier times, I was trying to create something that did not yet exist. This time, it was a job on Ami Hober's staff. After what seemed like an eternity, Hober said yes. And when she asked me what title I wanted, I heard myself saying, how about special assistant? And just like that, Ami Hober, a woman, saved a woman, me. You know, Charles Darwin is credited with saying it's not the strongest of the species that survives. It's the one that is most adaptable to change. Being an early beneficiary of Title IX helped me learn failure and adaptability in ways that still reverberate in my life. Those Title IX fueled experiences helped me weather being the first, being the only. Title IX informs how I've picked myself up when knocked down. Title IX taught me how to be a good team member, a leader and a follower. Title IX taught me there's always another game, another race, another match, until there's not. I've never been Darwin's the strongest of the species. There's always been someone stronger, faster, smarter, a better lawyer, singer, or songwriter. But Title IX's gifts taught me to better run the marathon, play the long game, not get distracted by the noise. And when a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic struck, my family and I took more walks, met more neighbors, ate more meals together, made more art. We learned about our ancestors, attended memorial services, birthday parties, and weddings by Zoom. We cut each other's hair, gave each other manicures, and found ways to make fashion statements out of KN95 masks. We learned how to coexist with a high school senior forced to spend more time than any 17-year-old should with parents or guardians. We practiced more self-care, and those, at least some of those rituals endure. You know, as we emerge from the COVID era, or at least attempt to, of course, not every woman can lean in on Title IX's 50-year legacy. For those of us who can, we must find ways to ensure future generations receive the benefits we've enjoyed. We've learned no right is without risk of being taken away. We, thus, must be vigilant in making sure 50 years from now, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Whether we're 20 or 70, we owe it to our granddaughters. America should not be a place where clocks spin backwards. Meanwhile, for those women whose lives are less touched by Title IX, trust me, we all have an inner Wonder Woman. We just got to believe it's there and know how to access it. A few weeks ago, my wife, mother, and I went to see Viola Davis in the Woman King. Amidst the warrior action, I took away 3 lessons relevant to the aims of this symposium. 1, history never stops being a teacher. I'm the progeny of slaves and consider myself well educated, but had never heard of the Agoge, the African Amazons depicted in the movie, their kingdom, Dahomey, or their language, Fawn. What that means for me is I'm still learning, growing, wrestling with complexity, and all of that makes me more human, more able to adapt. The second takeaway from that movie for me was women have been rocking it a long time. So we women of today stand on shoulders, and some of those shoulders were pretty amazing. For future generations to think of us that way, we must do the work. And finally, my final takeaway was the Dahomey were most successful when women and men worked together towards a common aim and in a context where women were respected. Earlier, I referenced the critical help my college friend, Wendy Galfan, and I had from men at or around Hopkins. I'm grateful for the mentoring, sponsorship, and friendship I've received from great and good men. We all need our Chancellor Martins. And sometimes we receive beautiful and tangible signs of progress. In school year 2021-22, more than 10 times the number of girls participated in high school sports than in 71-72. And what was only 10% of boys' participation in 71-72 is now at 75%. 2 weeks ago, I was on the campus of Hopkins and got a tour of its renovated athletic center. the same place that once forced women to take jock straps, now boasts a lactation center. Go figure. Yes, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Finding resilience and nimbleness makes the race or run more likely to go the way we dream. I'll close with the wisdom of country music legend, Leanne Womack. I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. You get your fill to eat, but always keep that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. Thank you so much. And I think we've got a fireside chat.
Well, I'd love to welcome our very own provost, Beverly Wendland, or Bev, as we. I'll give a real brief introduction and let these two friends catch up. As Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Beverly is responsible for the academic enterprise across the Danforth campus. Beverly convenes the deans as well as the leaders of numerous centers, programs, institutes, and works closely to promote academic excellence and scholarly activity, facilitate cross-disciplinary connections, foster improvements and innovations in research, and further enhance Washington University's deep commitment to student learning and success at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. Prior to joining WashU in 2020, Beverly served as the James B. Knapp Dean of the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences at Johns Hopkins University since 2015. As Dean, she oversaw 22 highly ranked academic departments representing natural sciences, social sciences, and humanities. During her tenure as Dean, Beverly led the Krieger School of Arts and Sciences through a highly successful capital campaign and was instrumental in the establishment of the SNF Agora Institute, a hub for research, teaching, and practice to strengthen global democracy. While Dean, she also led efforts to enhance the diversity of the faculty and graduate students and promote a more inclusive climate, which I think we heard a little bit about. These efforts included developing and supporting strategies to improve hiring practices and bolstering graduate student pipelines. Beverly was a member of the Johns Hopkins Department of Biology faculty since 1998 and served as chair 2009 to 2014. Her own research, I think some of us didn't even know probably, is on fundamental cellular processes using yeast as a simple model system. The author of numerous scholarly publications, she was recognized in 2015 as a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science for her innovative work on the genetic, molecular, biochemical, and biophysical mechanisms underlying the cellular process endocytosis. Her research has been funded by the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and her many honors and awards include the Burroughs Wellcome Fund New Investigator Award and the Pharmacological Sciences and the March of Dimes Basil O'Connor Award. I will not stand in the way of these two friends catching up. Beverly, it's so lovely to have you here.
Well, Paula, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to WashU, and we really are so excited to have you here with us today. And as you alluded in your remarks, we've known each other for at least a decade. It's been quite a while from my time at Hopkins. And since you were a trustee at the university and a generous donor alumna, you have always inspired me with your friendship, with your support, for your ambition for others, the priorities that you have set. So I'm really excited for this conversation so that our friends here will get a chance to know you a little bit better as I've known you. So I've got a few questions for you. All right. So first, you have spoken about the stress of wearing masks, and that is metaphorical masks, not KN95 masks and whatever like fashion statements you try to make with those. But the impact that one of those metaphorical masks can have on a person, and the best work that they're able to do. So as an African American in a corporate setting, or the only woman faculty member in a department, and so on. So as a leader, how do you think about creating an environment where people can be their whole self?
I love that question, because the whole concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion for me has become, when you find a place, either because you've created it or you're lucky enough to be part of it otherwise, where the greatest number of people can remove their masks and thus do their best work. Because my theory is that most of us do come into work settings or organized settings hiding something about ourselves, or trying to meet a culture that for us is inherently countercultural, right? And so for some of us, it could be being a woman in a male predominated environment and trying to, quote, fit in, and trying to do the kabuki dance of, okay, this is the cultural norm, and even though this is alien to me, I think that I need to do this in order to succeed. Or the only Black or brown person in a setting, or the only openly gay person, or the closeted gay person who is trying to navigate using gender neutral terminology to describe a weekend, so that that person isn't outed, right? But those aren't the only kinds of masks. Sometimes the mask is, wow, everybody here has an East Coast accent, and I'm from Southern Alabama, which my family first found itself in Alabama 200 years ago plus. So I think I can say this, but I'm trying to mask my accent, because I think, even though I'm really, really smart, I think if they hear my voice, they'll make other assumptions about me. And so I need to fit in by not sounding my true self. I mean, there are all kinds of masks. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I'm in a setting where everyone's, a very wealthy, and I don't want people to know that I come from some other kind of background, right? Maybe that's the mask you're wearing, but we all wear them. And so creating an environment where people come to trust that it's okay to acknowledge we wear masks, A. B, that they can remove their mask on a path to being their most authentic self. Those are the environments where magic happens, because what I've learned on my life journey is that when people can be their authentic self, they do their best work. They are more loyal. They are more likely to stay. They will work their heart out for you when they are in a place where they believe they are valued for who they are, right? And so that is what diversity, equity, and inclusion has become. And yes, I do believe there are guideposts that that are helpful in the discussion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I also believe that when most people in an organization believe diversity, equity, and inclusion is not about some other person, that they have something to lose by the conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's more likely to live. It's more likely to win. And finding ways where more people can be part of the DEI conversation, in my experience, has been a winning formula.
This is actually something that I'm personally very interested to know a little bit more about. So I am familiar with the Boggs Fellowship that you established at Johns Hopkins. And as the introduction to you articulated, it's awarded to HBCU graduates or underrepresented persons of color who pursue graduate studies in the physical, biological, or engineering sciences at Johns Hopkins University. And this program has had a tremendous impact. And I know that you established this fellowship in honor of your father. And so I was hoping you could share a little bit with us about your father's story and how this fellowship honors his legacy.
Yes, my father's story has evolved since I created the Boggs Fellowship, because I have a deeper appreciation for who my dad was, what he was up against, and the journeyed life he led now than I did when I created the Boggs Fellowship. I created, my dad, Nathaniel Boggs Jr., my late father, was the first awardee of a PhD in zoology from Howard University in 1963. And when I created the Boggs Fellowship in 1998, 1999 timeframe, I was struck by how few PhDs of African American descent were in the United States in biology in 1999. I mean, there weren't that many in 1963, but from 1963 to 1999, the numbers had not grown that much. And so that troubled me. And I knew biology was not unique. I mean, a similar story could be told in chemistry and physics and across the board of the physical sciences. And so here I was at this place. I had invested so much of my life in this place, Johns Hopkins, renowned for a lot of things, but among them, the physical sciences. And I saw an opportunity thus to tie my father's story to this institution I cared so much about, Johns Hopkins. Now, I will tell you, at the start, I wanted to create a scholarship for Black students, and I was very upfront about that. I got a lot of institutional pushback from Hopkins along the lines of, well, you can't really do that. You can't, say race. And so that led me to, we must be resourceful people. We there's more than one way to get to yes. And in my case, I said, okay, fine. Then the recipients of the Boggs Fellowship must be graduates of historically Black colleges, right? And so that was the initial impetus for that. And then over time, times change, and so did the criteria for the fellowship. But I think it's really important to have Black scientists in the United States of America. And it has been one of my life's joys to see these astrophysicists, microbiologists, the list is long, geologists now, who have done great things in the world. And every time they do, because still the numbers of Black scientists is small, they make a huge mark on the conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, I've met so many of the fellows that you've supported, and yeah, they're terrific people, and they're blazing a trail that your father initiated and that you've really put some juice in the engine there. So that's been wonderful. I think we're at time, but I feel like I want to ask her one more question. Is that okay, Jessica? Okay. All right. So you've spoken about being the CEO of your life. And so I want to hear a little bit more about this. What does that actually mean in practice? And what advice do you have for our students and for our early career faculty who are likely feeling a lot of different pressures about how to be the CEO of their lives and at the stage that they're at now?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that question. And I touched upon it for those of you who are law students who were in the room this morning. I touched on this a little bit, but many of you were not there. So let me start with this. My wife, Randy, is in the room. And for us, this whole notion of the work of your soul really came out of a time, and we're point of personal privilege. We're celebrating our 33rd anniversary here in St. Louis. Thank you. But we were both in jobs that on the surface were really impressive. So, I was a partner in this very prestigious big law firm in Seattle, and Randy was MSNBC's first art director for news when MSNBC was a startup. So we had these, on the surface, really high-powered jobs, and we were both miserable. And so we sat at the breakfast table and had this 3-hour conversation around the work of our soul. What does that look like? And honestly, I had not really thought about what I needed that way before that conversation. But what it resulted in, and I think it's really important for those of you who are students and early in your careers to hear this, is, first of all, there's no right answer. There's just your answer. Let's start with that, right? There's no preconceived right answer. It's the right answer for you. I would invite you to think about, forget about a particular job, a particular title, even a particular industry. Think about, what are the ingredients in work that make your heart sing? Start with that. You may not be able to get there initially, but you need to know what that is, right? For me, what I learned was I need a lot of autonomy. I need to be in a job where I can do my thing, where I can be entrepreneurial, where I don't have a lot of rules, people telling me I have to do it this way. Just tell me what the bottom line is and let me devise a path to get there, right? I need that in a job. And if I don't have it, then I'm going to leave because I'm too constrained. Even in the wake of a job that from a financial standpoint is very good, I can't do it, right? Not long term. The second thing I need is a sense of mission. I need it to be bigger than me. And I need there to be people around me who believe it's bigger than them. And we're most of the time reaching for something in the same time zone, right? And I didn't know that initially in the earliest part of my career. I was in those settings and I took it for granted. It wasn't until I was no longer in that kind of setting that I realized its absence. And that told me, oh my God, I need to be in that kind of setting. And for me, being in that kind of setting was far more important than whether it was not-for-profit or for-profit or academia. I needed to be in that kind of setting. So I would encourage you, either by yourself or with your loved ones, to make that list. You may not be able to get there initially because of financial limitations. People have student loans, whatever. But you may have family obligations that put that North Star on pause, but know what it is. And think actively about how you get from wherever you are now to that. Because if you can define it and reach it, I can't remember if it was Woody Allen or Bob Dylan, but the 99% is showing up, whatever that was, it's actually true. But you have to be able to imagine it and see it, for you to manifest it. And it may take 10 years. It may take a month. It may, it's your life, right? And each of us is unique in that way. But that's got to be the thing. I didn't know I was going to be a professional musician when I began my law career. If someone had said that, I would have laughed them out of the room, right? But it's also true if someone had said, you're going to be general counsel of a Fortune 500 company in 20 years, I would have laughed them out of the room, right? You don't know. The details change, but the North Star is the North Star.
And I think that also speaks to coming back to my first question about being able to be your authentic self, right?
Yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
Well, we are past time, and I think there's a reception out there waiting for us. So,
Oh, goody.
so Paula, thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you to our people who are here with us, those who are live streaming. This has been, I had very high expectations for what this was going to be. And as usual, you have far exceeded them. So thank you so much.